Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Yellow. Oh! How we doing? This has to be some sort of mistake for morning stream. It always feels that way. I'm always like, I'm not supposed to be here. I am not a morning person. I'm not a morning person. Also, I go to bed late. Even when I try to go to bed earlier, I just cannot. It's so hard for me to try to fall asleep. It's my 30th birthday. Yo, you have the same 30. You were born on the same day as Samantha Witcha, as Sandwich, who also is celebrating her 30th birthday. Happy 30th birthday, Scooter. Yeah, is this Sam's alt? Did we just figure out that this is Sam's alt? Do you always wake up at this time? Fuck no. Hell no. This is like how rare morning streams are. I told Will, I was like, hey, just a heads up, I have to get up early and do a morning stream. And he was like, oh. So he slept on the couch. rather than have to wake up and then move, he just slept on the couch. And I texted him at like 4 a.m. when he was still playing Marvel Rivals, and I was like, hey, I gotta get up in like 4 hours. And it's so funny because he'll always do this thing and be like, oh, why didn't you just come in? Why did you come in? I'm like, I told you. I said, because I already told you. I had to get up early. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. I thought you were doing work. I was like, I was doing work, and then I was trying to go to bed. Good morning, Zor. Thank you for the 19 months. Asian Skills, thank you for the 14 months. Diet Cola, thank you for the 16. And as always, whenever I do an interview on stream, that is why I get up in the morning. I always try to go live earlier. I'm like, oh, I'll do like an hour and a half stream before I have to do this interview, and then it never happens. Ever. It does not happen. What time did you wake up? I woke up probably 8:30. But I didn't fall asleep till about 4:30. At least. Anyway, 9 a.m. is your 5 a.m. It is. Yeah. How are you today? I'm good. So yesterday well, you know what? Also, I was laying in bed. I'm like, okay. I did that thing where I was like, all right, time to go to sleep. And then suddenly I started thinking about all these things I had to do. And I was like, oh, I'm going to Japan on Tuesday, and I am not prepared at all. And it's like that thing where I know I'm going, but then I'm starting to be like, oh my God, I'm leaving. And there's so many things that I have to get done before that. But yesterday I did not stream because I went to go see 2 movies, and one of them was the last screening that I could go to. So I was like, okay, I got to go see this movie. And then so I went and saw From Ground Zero. Paul Rudd, thank you for the 6 months. I went and saw From Ground Zero, which is the which is the anthology film that is Palestine's official Oscar submission. It is an anthology film of 22 short movies that were all made by people in Gaza. Like, just I was thinking about it and I went, this film feels like a miracle. Every single one of these short films feels like a mini miracle, making one big miracle, because how do you create something, anything, when you are living under the conditions that those in Gaza have been in for 15 months? Would you rate it on Letterboxd? Sometimes I feel weird rating movies. Like, I don't love movie rating to begin with, as far as like, how many stars did you give it? But there's also like within that, especially instances where I'm like, this feels weird. It feels gross to give a rating to a film like that. Anyway, so I saw that film and I did. Okay, so I was like, do I go rewatch The Brutalist, or do I watch something else? And I ended up watching something else, and what I watched was Sing Sing, which is a film I have been wanting to watch for a long time. And now if I ever run into Andrew Garfield, I can officially be like, oh my God, I also loved Sing Sing. I first heard about the film when Andrew Garfield was talking about it on an interview, and he was just like, oh my God, it's so gorgeous. Coleman Domingo is so incredible. And so that's how I first became aware of the film. And so that was the second film I went to see, because it has had a re-release. So it came out, it's actually a 2023 film, but it was released in July, but it was a limited release. And then it won, it was nominated and won some awards at the Gotham award show. And so people were like, oh my God, I really want to see this movie. Like, please, A24, please release this film again. And so they, yesterday, or what's the date? 17th. Yeah, yesterday it came back to the theaters and is going to be there for a little bit again. So sometimes that happens. A movie comes out. You can't, it's very limited. Also, like, you just don't really know about it. And so it just comes and goes, and then it gets attention again, and it can, that can help secure it an additional distribution, theatrical release. It's not showing anywhere around me. That sucks. I hate that, genuinely. I hate that, like, okay, I'm very lucky I live in LA, so pretty much have access to most films. Like, if there's a film that's not screening in LA, then it's not screening anywhere else. But I just hate how many people who are not in a city like LA or New York don't have access to the films. Yeah, the theater here is so bad. You know what I love too? Yesterday, I'm always like, for me, going to the theaters it's a collective experience, especially if you're watching something. Especially if you're watching something that is, very emotional at its core, like From Ground Zero and Sing Sing. And yesterday the screening of Sing Sing I went to, it was like all dudes. It was me and then all like really young guys who went to go see this movie, and everybody was crying. like the guy next to me was like quietly crying. I was crying. Like, especially with the final montage, because if you don't know, Sing Sing is a drama film about incarcerated men at the Sing Sing Correctional Facility, which is a real place in New York. And they are part of the RTA, which is Rehabilitation Through the Arts, and it is a program that aims to use theater as a form of rehabilitation. Obviously, that is so my shit. Like, I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in theater. You combine the two of them together, and like, that's what I'm about. There's no singing in Sing Sing. No. So anyway, at the end of the film, it shows you pictures and video footage of the actual incarcerated men who were a part of RTA at Sing Sing that this film is based on. So it's based on a book that's based on these, real people in this real program, and the ensemble of the film is comprised of all guys who were formerly incarcerated and who were participants in this program. So, I think Coleman Domingo is the only Coleman Domingo, and then hold on, what's his name? Yeah, Paul Rachi, who's in Sound of Metal. If you've ever seen that, he's awesome. I think Coleman and Paul are like the only two cast members, also Johnny Simmons, he's not really a big part though, who are like main ensemble, who are not former incarcerated and then turned actors. So it's remarkable because you have all of these actors performing in the film who were incarcerated at Sing Sing and who were part of this Rehabilitation Through the Arts program. And at the end, it shows you, it goes through the credits and it's like so-and-so as himself, and then shows you like actual recordings of the plays that they did. And it's very special. There's a prison in the Philippines that lets the prisoners sing and dance together. Yeah, I mean, I think this film is one where it focuses mostly on the program and the guys who are in the program and the play that they are putting on. And on the peripheral are the parole hearings and the attempts to be released. And that provides, those provide weight and ground you in the reality of the carceral system in this country. But it's about, it's really about the ability of theater, of performance as it as a tool for giving purpose to people who are seen as like the like having no purpose, right? That they have no purpose, and so this is how they have ended up where they are. And anyway, I'm a big believer of the arts being accessible for everybody, not just those who have the means and the the resources to access the arts, but it is something that should be available to everybody. RTA alums are putting on an off-Broadway performance of the play from the film in a few weeks, but it's a closed event. Oh, sad, but that's cool. Where's my coffee? Okay. Ooh. It's my brain is starting to wake up. Psycho Jenny, thank you for 3 months. Callie Mom, thank you for the Prime. Okay, so let me tell you why I'm here. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why are any of us here? That is the question. Why are any of us here? I am here because I am talking to David Ehrlich of IndieWire in 15 minutes. So we are going to be having a conversation about movies. He is a movie guy. He's a professional movie guy. And a couple days ago, we watched his countdown video, which is awesome. I look forward to it every year. What the fuck? And this is his fundraiser that he had already surpassed the goal before he even released the film. So every year he puts out this edited countdown 25 best films of 2024 video, or of the year, and it's great. And so I'm going to just be talking to him about that, about film criticism, about award season. I've got to get his thoughts on Amelia Perez. And then talking to him about films, about Gazan films, Palestine's films that have come from Palestinians this year. And then usually what I do at the end of these interviews is I will open up the floor to take a couple questions. So I'll probably do that again. So after our chat, if there's like something that you're dying to know, then you can put the question in chat and I'll pick a couple out. I don't always love his criticism, but the countdowns are sick and so is the fundraising, and disagreeing with the critic is half the fun of criticism in general. Yeah. I believe that we are in a state of criticism where there are a lot of people who don't know how to engage with film criticism, and that is something that I'm interested in talking to him about. R.I.P. David Lynch as well. So you need to ask about Megalopolis being his top movies. Yeah, the thing is, I haven't seen Megalopolis. It's one of those where I'm just like, Megalopolis is in your top movies, but I'm also like, okay, I haven't seen it. You know how you'll do that with movies where you're like, what? And then you'll be like, okay, I haven't seen it though. Speaking of David Lynch, y'all, I will be doing a tribute to him. I'm going to be streaming tonight. So today I'm not good, or this morning I'm not going to be streaming too long, but I'll be back later tonight, and I think that's when I'll do that's when I'll do my tribute to David Lynch. Excited for I think we're just going to watch Inland Empire because it's 4 hours, 3.5 hours. We'll just watch that. Yeah. I'll get banned, but it's fine. Yeah, what's my favorite Lynch film? You know, I think for me I think it's Mulholland Drive because that was also my first Lynch experience. Like, you always remember your first. You always remember your first. And I remember watching Mulholland Drive. Like, I was so fascinated by the cover of the film, and it was in my dad's movie collection. And I just remember it being like titillating, you know? There was something about it that seemed really I don't know, sexy but also dangerous. And I was like, I have to watch this film. And I just remember watching it and I was like, oh my God. I had never seen anything like it before. It's just impossibly good. I can't believe it exists. It's so good. So good. Have you Twin Peaks? Yeah, I watched Twin Peaks so then I watched, so Mulholland Drive was like senior year of high school, and then got into more Lynch in college, so that's when I watched Twin Peaks, and I was just like, it was like mesmerizing. Same, as a teenager, I'd only seen normal movies, and so that really opened my mind. Yeah, and I think for people who aren't Lynch fans, or they're like not into the whole art, not into his whole, art doesn't need to make sense. I think it's important to remember too, though, like, one thing that I always like to point out on this stream is what the state of film, what the industry was like when a person like David Lynch first emerged, and how if you aren't aware of what what film was like when David Lynch was starting out, then you won't appreciate as much how different he was, and how much how he changed the game, and he showed that you don't have to follow rules. And he just, I don't know, I have a lot to say about him. And I'm excited to. The thing about Lynch too is that he's a guy who was pretty. He held his art to his chest, in that he held it closely to his chest, in that he didn't like to explain his art. He didn't like to be like, this is what this is. People have always been searching for answers to his questions that he poses in his films, and that is the point. And yet he's also a guy who was such a character outside of his films. And so there are many, many interviews and very just iconic David Lynch things. First episode of Twin Peaks totally blew me. Yeah. So we'll get into that later, but what I will say, I have been amazed to see the amount of tributes to David Lynch online. I don't think I have seen the internet so collectively reverent and like really wholesome in regards to the loss of a celebrity, of somebody in the industry. And I think it's a reminder that David Lynch had something for everybody, and how much he meant to so many people, Like, he wasn't just this guy who was in like the avant-garde fringe. He wasn't like an underground type of filmmaker. And yet he wasn't like, he wasn't a guy who like sold out, who went mainstream, who, went corporate. A critic I love said Lynch has been everyone's favorite director at some point. Yeah, I think that's probably true. Hard to imagine a filmmaker more universally loved than Lynch. Yeah, and it is a testament to him and his work that the entire internet is like, oh my God. I cannot believe that David Lynch is gone. Here's my tribute to him. Is it bad the only Lynch film I've seen is Don't Look Up? What did he have something to do with that? Is he like a producer? That's are you talking about Adam McKay? I thought that was him. You'll know Lynch when you see him. he was, I mean, there's an entire like word that is a part of the lexicon now to describe things that are like weird, surreal. Sometimes when you can't explain something, and so it's described as Lynchian. It's very Lynch. Like his name has become like a way to describe something that is indescribably strange. Who, like, what other director, what other filmmaker's name has become a word like that? That like in the mainstream people understand what that means, right? No, I would argue not. Like you can say maybe like Hitchcock or Kubrick, but not in the way that David Lynch is like there's no synonyms. There's no known synonyms to describe something that can only be described as like Lynchian. And I like, for me, like it's very mainstream that like even young people understand that. People who, don't watch normally the genre of films that modern David Lynch like filmmakers make. Anyway, James Lee, thank you for the 5 months. Caroling for real, streaming midday. Yeah, it's gonna be a short one, but here I am. Moonside Boob, thank you for the 14 months. All right, I have my call in 20 minutes, so let me get this, or 2 minutes, so let me get this ready. Let me get this ready. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna try. Dude. Oh, I froze. I froze. Okay. Join with video. Let's try. Yeah, see, it always wants to do this. Start virtual camera. Hold on. Stop virtual camera. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Okay. I don't understand why this is always like fucking slow. Okay. There we go. Zoom is so shitty. Nonstop Autopop, thank you for the 28 months. It lags a lot. All right, you guys, let me pause my music. Okay, so, like I said, I'm going to have this conversation with David, and then at the end, I'll open up the floor and take a couple questions that you guys have about anything we've talked about or anything we didn't talk about. David is the chief film critic for IndieWire. So I'm really the reviews editor and head film critic at IndieWire, and I'm really excited to chat with him. Alrighty. Okay, hopefully this works. Did that work? Let's see. Hello, good morning. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but not through these giant ass headphones that I'm wearing. Let me just fiddle with the settings for a second. Speaker. Let's do headphones. Good. Okay. Should be all good.
Okay. All right. How's the weather in New York? Is it cold?
Oh, it's miserable. How are things where you are, wherever you are?
Well, I'm in Los Angeles, so we've been on
Oh,
fire for
I was hoping
a
you weren't
while.
going to say that.
Yeah, I actually had to evacuate my place the second night. So let's see, it's been a long week, but I think
Are you back home now?
yeah, so we were able to
Okay.
actually go back. Mine was affected by, or my place was affected by the Hollywood Hills fire. I don't know how closely you've been paying attention to the various fires
I
in
know there's
LA.
more
There's
than
so
one, but
many.
yeah.
I know. So what happened that night is I was about to go live and cover the fires that were happening in the Palisades and in Pasadena and Altadena, and then suddenly I'm getting texts. It's like, hey, I think you might need to evacuate, or you gotta. Are you paying attention to what's happening? There's a fire that's right by you, and it was just such madness because I was like, no, wait, what? No, there's fires over there. Like I'm about to go watch the news, and then suddenly it was like in my backyard, and so anyway,
Well,
so
I'm
that's
glad that your
the
backyard and the house attached to it still exist, which I guess is
yeah,
more than you could say for a lot of people in LA. But
which is
it's
true.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really, I sort of understand what's happening out there and what's been happening intellectually, but it's still kind of unimaginable when I see those overhead shots of where Altadena used to be and things like that. It's just yeah, the idea of these it's a lot to wrap your head around. But
It
I'm glad
is,
that you
yeah.
are safe and well.
Thank you. 2025 has been.
It's coming with a bang.
It is coming with a bang. And then I was just before I hopped on with you briefly talking about David Lynch, who
Who
what
may
a
or may not have, yeah, I mean, may have been a victim of
I know,
the wildfires in some way, which is,
which is terrible.
um, yeah, I mean, it's terrible regardless, but it just makes the disaster that was already, confronting Los Angeles
Yeah, I
that much
know.
worse. Yeah, but it's what is it, January 17th? I mean, we have 11 and a half months to go.
Yeah, this we haven't even had the inauguration yet. Like this is all happened
This is all the
before.
slow rollout
I
for the
know.
fun to come.
But I want to ask you before we jump into things, what is your favorite David Lynch project?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the answer to that question is almost like it all feels like a cliche, maybe just because there weren't so many of them, and because they're all so worthy of being somebody's favorite. Unless I really threw a curveball and said like the straight story or something, which
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to do. Uh, but no, truth be told, I mean, I was a Mulholland Drive guy from day one. I
Yeah, me
saw it when
too.
I was 16 or 17, and it like totally radicalized me. And later fell in love with Twin Peaks, and especially Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which I think is one of the most sort of harrowing and yeah, it's like discombobulating films that I've ever seen. Very haunting. Uh, yeah, I mean, he was. I don't know. I mean, it's. I was just struck yesterday thinking about what to say about him, and just that like his work was always so hard and futile to describe, and so existed on its own terms.
Mm-hmm.
That trying to sort of put his impact into words feels almost to like it's missing the pointer. Is like a fundamentally impossible
I
goal.
totally agree with that because his whole thing was like the experience of watching his film was one that should be individual and that should always be, it doesn't need to be one where you have to understand how you feel or you have to know, oh, that this is what this means. It can be something where you watch it 10 times and it's different every time, or maybe you just have no idea
Yeah.
and you just are fascinated by the images.
And
And
I think, as surreal as his work was, there's something really inviting about what you're saying and
mhm.
really accessible
Oh
about it, and
yeah,
that it
yeah.
allowed everyone to sort of enter it at their own level, and engage with it in their own way. And I think that is part of what made him, such a cultural phenomenon for so many people.
Yeah, it's a testament to him that I honestly, I think maybe since Bowie died, haven't seen this level, this outpouring of love for
Yeah.
a cultural icon. I mean, it is amazing to see all over the internet from people who don't normally post about film or the industry, who are giving a testament to David Lynch.
I mean, I just saw on Twitter, someone retweeted a Polish train company paying tribute to David Lynch, and I was like, like there are there's Bob's Big Boy, of course, and these things that are sort of in
Uh-huh.
his wheelhouse. But there's like, yeah, I mean, when artists die, it is very rare to see just the sheer breadth of tributes that have been pouring in and
Yeah,
the number
especially
of
one
people
who was as
affected.
like wacky and weird and avant-garde as
But
a
he was also
David
sort of
Lynch,
like a
but he
universal language,
was.
right? Like he impacted
Yeah.
the vernacular even just beyond the English language. And I think that like, yeah, I mean, there was sort of a feeling like the entire world of people who experienced his films were sort of all brought on the same wavelength for a time. And
Yeah.
how rare that is today.
Truly. Okay, well, we could talk about Lynch for a long time, but we got other stuff to talk about. So I want to jump in. Everybody, as I said before we jumped on the call, this is David Ehrlich of IndieWire. You are the reviews editor and the head film critic. And there's quite a few people in my community who know who you are, knew who you were before I started watching your countdown videos. And then there's others who have gotten to know you because of the countdown videos. So I'd love to start off talking about that because you just released your countdown video of your top 25 best films of 2024. So I want to I want to ask you, what does that what does that process entail, because I know it must be a lot, and it's very well done every year. I look forward to it every year. And I think,
Thanks.
I think it speaks to how fun the editing is of those videos. And even if you don't agree with, the top 25 you've chosen, which is fine, that there is still an appreciation for just looking back and seeing all these movies from the year and the various themes that they share and the moments that you find in them, to like draw a string through. So would love to know, like,
Mhm.
how did you start doing those, and what does your process look like every year when you do them?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, thanks for shouting them out, watching them in the first place, sharing them with people on Twitch. Hi, Twitch. I've never actually been or even I don't think watched Twitch before, even though I've been an obsessive video gamer for 35 years.
Oh my God, what do you
So this is like a whole new
play?
world to me. I
Wait a
mean,
sec.
what don't I play?
Okay,
I
okay,
have
you're a gamer.
I mean, I was gonna say I unfortunately have two children. No, unfortunately, as far as my gaming extends, I have two children. And that has
Yeah, I
severely
hear you.
impacted the time
Yeah.
that I have available for them. Although playing through Astrobot with my now 5-year-old son was a real full circle, profound moment for me.
Oh, that's adorable.
Uh, but he also watched me play through all of The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut like 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago when
Mm-hmm.
he was too young to be scared by anything, and he just delighted in watching me shotgun what he called the scary guys. So,
Oh.
but I'm of a certain generation. For me, video games, unless somebody's in the room with me, tend to be a one player experience, and so I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely drawn to like the longer single player games that I can really invest my time in.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for all the blood, like the Soulsborne shit. If I can
Okay.
curse on this, I can. I don't know. But and I. Yeah, I grew up loving like JRPGs and action games, and now find myself just obsessively playing like Marvel Snap and Balatro on my phone and trying to like squeeze in some simulacrum of the gaming experience, like on the toilet or the subway. But in the time allotted to me. But I don't know, even though I've never had less time to play video games, perversely, I'm more interested in and more drawn to than ever the longer, more sort of in-depth ones, because I
Yeah.
feel like if I'm going to bother like getting a game and investing my time into it, I want it to be worth the ride. And so looking forward to the new Assassin's Creed game. Even though was mixed on Valhalla, I don't know. I'm taking it as it comes, but we'll see.
You
Anyway.
you you have now established yourself as like you're renegade gamer in this chat. They're all saying based, which if you don't know what that means, it's a
I don't.
good thing.
I'm
So,
not that
yeah.
old, but
Yeah.
my tastes are so basic. I feel like
No,
I don't
it's
earn a base description,
I
but
I I think
I've
it's
been in the
just
trenches for a long time.
yeah, you are a gamer with a capital G. Mhm.
But anyway, your videos, I should apologize to you and to your listeners that like, as you'll probably infer from my answers, I've never really talked about these videos in any sort of like public forum before. There's such an insular, private, like hermit-like experience to make late at night, and I'm delighted egotistically for the chance to just sort of talk about them as if they are worthy of being talked about. But yeah, it's all new to me in terms of actually like having to sort of detail my process and try not to laugh at even having a process to detail. But
I'm
yeah, I mean,
amazed. I can't believe that you've never talked about them. I mean,
I mean,
you can see how
I
much
talk
work.
about them.
Yeah.
I'm very sheepish about them, I think, because they are. I sort of struggle with how seriously to take them because, like, on the
Mhm.
one hand, I put a mortifying amount of time into editing them, and it is a real creative outlet for a
Mhm.
frustrated artist, cliche like myself, who went into criticism, dropped out of film school because I couldn't really afford it. People were saying to pay for me to write about movies, and I was like, well, it feels like the universe is guiding me in one direction. And Yeah, and so like this is a big creative outlet for me, but at the end of the day, it's also just sort of a glorified supercut, and I'm sure I would roll my eyes if I heard someone else talking about their supercut in any sort of artistic terms. And so I sort of waffle back and forth, even as they've grown, and try to couch my embarrassment in building fundraisers around them for causes that are really meaningful to me, which sort of helps me live with the
Mhm.
the work involved in doing it. But Yeah, I mean, it started because I was in film school and I needed to learn how to use editing software. And so I was just ingesting clips of movies that I'd seen recently, and stitching them together, and finding that that was for me the most enjoyable part of the filmmaking process.
Mm.
I was sort of itchy and impatient on set, and I hate I way too critical of my own writing to have ever actually finished a feature-length screenplay, because this is the part of the critic brain that is a real cross to bear, and that like I'm
Yeah.
just as hard, if not harder, on anything I generated myself than I am on things that I ingest from the outside. So yeah, I just started editing this footage together, and thought that making a countdown video would my favorite films of the year would be a good excuse. I'd never really seen anything like that back in 2011 when I started. And I just, while all of my other filmmaking outlets fell apart, this ended up taking more and more of my time. And it became sort of over the years, I don't know, sort of like a personal a test. I guess like there were various challenges in every year in my life. There was one year I was finishing them in December and my dad died. There was another where other challenges were more positive, where like I had my first child and like I did this. But like through it all, whatever obstacles, so to speak, there were, I endeavored to finish these things. And it helps at the end of every year for me to look back and be like, uh, you know, I was able to do it through this. I was able to do it through that. Could there be better uses of my time? Could I be writing a book? Could I be reading a
Everyone could
book?
be writing a book.
Yeah, but it's like I unfortunately know myself. It's like, would I be writing a book? Probably not. So instead of, watching 4 seasons of Love Island Australia or, spending another 100 hours in Metaphor Refantasio, which I got up to the last boss of and decided not to beat for whatever reason. I don't know. It's
I did that with
but
Elden. I did that with Elden Ring, the
yeah.
DLC. So
Well,
it happens. Yeah.
I did that with Elden Ring out of submission to the fact that I couldn't beat the last boss, as
You're
opposed to
like, you know what?
Metaphor,
I'm just
where
gonna take a break.
God, I could steamroll the last boss in Metaphor, I'm sure, but I just like didn't bother. But yeah, after a few rounds, the last boss of the DLC in Elden Ring, I was just like, you know what,
No, it's
life's
too
frustrating
hard.
enough.
I
And
was
then they
like,
nerfed
I
him, and I never
can't
went
do
back.
this. Yeah,
But
yeah.
he won that round. But yeah, no. So I do these things. It's very in the moment, it's very cathartic for me late at night, after the kids are bed and I don't have the energy to do anything else. It scratches a part of my brain where things are sort of orderly and
Mm-hmm.
compulsive. Um, but it would be wrong to say the project is necessarily meditative in the abstract because it becomes, with all these various things happening in my life, extremely stressful to finish on time
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
tends to ruin every holiday season because,
Because that's when it's
I'm
coming
just
out.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like constantly trying to find time to do it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe one of these years I will. The goal is, one day I'll set a fundraising goal so high that it won't be met, and I'll be freed from the burden of having to do this. But I also really hope that never happens. So I'm sort of,
Yeah.
I go back
Well,
and forth.
okay, so how many years have you done the fundraiser? Because I've seen that as when I started tuning in, so I think it was like 2021 to your countdown vids, the fundraising goal every year has gone up because it's always surpassed. Like this year, you hit the goal before you even released the video, and it was your highest goal yet.
Yeah, I mean, I started the fundraiser. I think this is only occurring to me right now in the moment, but I started the fundraiser right around the time that my first of the two kids that I have was born, and I think that was really just me telling myself like I cannot justify this sort of frivolous waste of time if it is not benefiting some cause that's bigger than myself. And
Mm.
I was initially partnering with I would reach out to the filmmakers who were sort of number one on my list, and just talk to them a little bit about what causes were important to them, and they would invariably align with things that I also cared about. And so that was very easy. It was never like I went to someone and they were like, donate to the Republican Party. And I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But the yeah, and then the last 2 years, just on my own volition, I decided to sort of put that aside and just exclusively focus on raising money for various causes in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so like the just kept raising the fundraising goal. And I guess I'll raise it again a little bit more next year. But yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be making these things if not for that. And it makes me, yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of pride for the things that I create, but I am very proud of the money that we've raised for these causes, and
Well,
especially because like some of the causes have been smaller. And I mean, it means so much to me to give the money to like the Palestine Red Crescent Society,
yeah.
but also raising money for like local food banks in Brooklyn, and knowing that the amount of money we're able to give makes such a big difference is nice.
You are an artist at your heart because the amount of self-criticism that is only coming from someone who who's an artist. Like I used to screenwrite, and I remember the first time I heard oh yeah, being a screenwriter means to like hate writing. And I went, what? Because I did like so much of it was, oh my God, I hate writing most of the time, 90% of the time, except for 10%. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah. I
But
mean, it's addictive to have found any sort of creative expression, if we can call this that I don't hate. And like I think
yeah,
of the work that I do in film criticism as I think of film criticism as a fundamentally creative act. And you know, the movies that I see sort of as writing prompts, as much as anything else. But I hate writing. Like it's agony for me.
it is agony. I think everybody who writes hates writing.
I mean, a lot of the people who read what I write also hate reading it. So I
Yeah,
think there's a level in
yes.
which my readership and I can bond. But I think that like I know a lot of people in my field who love the act of writing so much that they will, you know, have free newsletters that they write for the love of the game, you know, on whatever time off they have. And that just blows my mind because like truly every sentence I feel like I'm scraping off a layer of skin, no matter how banal
Those people
and
can't be
useless that
real.
sentence might be.
What are they must be taking like this something that's the equivalent of the substance, but for
I'll take it.
writing.
Give it to me. That was the moral of that movie, right? Like any shortcuts you can take
Yeah,
will just benefit you in the
please.
end.
Yes, I
Yeah,
learned like I
without
don't know whatever
consequence.
whatever other lessons they wanted me to take away, but that's what it is. I'm like, I'll if the substance is available, I will take it.
Just give me that shit.
Please.
Yeah.
Um,
But no, the videos. You asked just like about the process at the very start, and obviously I haven't said a single thing about that because
that's how it goes, though.
I'm
I
terrible at
totally
talking
get
about
it.
this. But
The
yeah,
process is
I
there's none.
there's no, I tend to start in, I keep like a running musical playlist throughout the year. That's sort of the only note that I take just so that I have a bank of music to draw from. And I start collating footage together in around August of every year, and try and think as soon as I can as like a song to use for the introduction and a scene that I can use to build the introduction around. And then we'll begin like really cutting in earnest in the beginning of October or so. But the first like 4 months of the process are there's not a single image. It's exclusively just about building the spine of the music. And that is the part that is deeply unfun and agonizing. And
Mm-hmm.
that makes me be like, why the hell am I doing this to myself every year? And then eventually I have a spine for the music, and it's a lot more satisfying, like, you know, putting everything in its right place by assigning images to the sort of musical bedrock that you have. But yeah, it takes about like five months and change of like, you know, working between like, I don't know, I'm very ADD, so I'll be like writing a sentence for work, and then I'll like go over and do like one little cut here, and I'll go back. But it's a lot of late nights and that sort of thing.
My God, do you sleep at all?
I mean, I mean, yeah, no, I don't, but you
Like that's
know,
fine. You sleep when you're dead.
but it's like you know, if I would never know how long it really takes because it's not like I'm like, okay, I'm carving out this 1 hour to do
Yeah,
just this. It's like
you just take
seconds
time when you
of every
can.
like seconds of a minute,
Yeah.
and it's like every minute is sort of divided into fractions where you know some I'm replying to email and some I'm doing work, and it's all probably the worst possible way of doing things. But if I did know how long these videos actually took, like how many hours or hundreds of hours they took to make, I would throw myself off a bridge. So
Do you?
I am never want to know.
Okay, so we'll make sure that you never find that out
Yeah.
because we would like to keep getting these videos. Do you feel like you have because you spend so much time editing and you've obviously, learned a lot about the editing process. Do you feel like when you watch and review films now, you have an even more appreciation for editing? Like I studied acting and screenwriting, and so for me, those are the two things that I feel I most pay attention to because that's what
Hmm.
I have a background in. And also those are the two things I am always looking for in the award season. Really, really obsessed with what's
Mm,
happening in the acting categories
sure.
for award season every year. But yeah, so do you feel like that has helped you as a film critic to even have a sharper eye, more of an appreciation for
I
editing?
don't. I mean, I don't know because like the kind of editing that these videos require is not you know narrative editing in the conventional sense, and so I felt like I learned enough about how difficult it is to stitch two shots together to have any sort of continuous emotionality or
Mm-hmm.
logical sense of physical space when I was in film school, and that doing that certainly gave me a better appreciation for
Mm-hmm.
how hard it is to like, you watch like a scene of people sitting at a table in a movie, and if you've ever tried shooting one of those and cutting it together, it can look like the simplest thing in the world, and you just like, the geometry challenge part of my brain is just sort of weeping about how difficult it can be to put together. Um, I I mean, I think the editing, the making these videos gives me maybe a richer appreciation for like discrete movements within individual shots. Um, but I'm so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. It's so different from the like. I don't think I would be any better even after 13 years of doing this at editing together a scene of dialogue than I was 13 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
for example. And so like I think that I'm probably um yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it would give me a different appreciation for music videos or something. But
Bring
yeah.
MTV back.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
Um yeah, I don't know. But I definitely have. I've always had a healthy respect for how hard it is to make
Yeah.
movies that don't completely suck. As many as which hasn't stopped me from suggesting that so many of them do. But I know that it's hard.
Okay,
So
so I want to get into film criticism now because a big thing with film criticism is like, well, there's a lot to talk about. I have a lot of questions, but so this whole idea that like film critics should have an understanding of how films are made, right? And you are somebody who did go to film school. You do have you do have that understanding and that appreciation. And one criticism today of film criticism is that modern film critics, or people who call themselves critics, like they don't understand filmmaking. Like they don't
mhm.
know what it takes to make a film, and they have also not an understanding of film history. I think it was Viggo Mortensen who
Oh yeah, I remember
recently,
that.
yeah, he was. It was like his quote about how few modern film critics understand film history. So, I want to talk to you about. I want to get your thoughts on film criticism, specifically like how it's changed, and if you agree with, they have been saying for a while that film criticism is dying, right? That it's a dying
Mm.
art, that film critics are a dying breed, that modern film criticism is just is mush. And so here you are, a film critic, to
Yeah.
give us your thoughts on.
I'm sure I've inspired many of those criticisms with my own work over the years, but I think yeah, it's a convenient that so many of those critiques started to be made when I began working professionally.
You're like, this is
But
about me.
yeah.
Like, excuse me.
No, I mean, I feel of two minds about it in terms of like, how valuable it is or is not for film critics to have like a hands-on appreciation for filmmaking, because I think that like we I think a work of art doesn't is meant to sort of be ingested by people on a different level than that. I mean, I think that you can appreciate the craft involved if you know what goes into it, and certainly if you are dedicating yourself to something as a living. I don't know how I would do that without having as intricate and detailed a knowledge of the process that went into making these things as possible. But I think some of the greatest film critics who've ever lived are people who were never on a film set, who couldn't give a shit nor care less about what lenses were used in a particular shot, and are more. Their energy can be more focused as a result of that on the effect of those choices. And editing is such an interesting way into this, because you're thinking about editing in terms of the award season. I always sort of roll my eyes at the best editing Oscar, because we in the audience have no idea what the editing was like. Were the performances the editing? Was this how it was shot? What footage was left on the cutting room floor? I mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
how did the movie take shape in the edit? We're all just sort of reverse engineering it from our reaction to the film in totality. And so editing is sort of an invisible art, and I think it just sort of speaks to the fact that like you can know everything about something and still really not know how it was made, and vice versa. But I think there is obviously value in having a fluent understanding with film history. I think it's especially something that people are mindful of and maybe elitist about in movies, because movies are such a young medium that you actually can, at this point in time, have a more or less comprehensive knowledge of everything that's been made. I
Yeah.
mean, I think, or at least the illusion that you can. Whereas, you know, in the literature world, in the world of fine arts, I think it's sort of understood that there are going to be, you know, the Western canon plays a big part, but there are always going to be these blind spots. I think that's true of film as well. I mean, I think even the most well-seen film critics from America, probably there are huge swaths of Nigerian film and Indian film and whatnot that they have, Brazilian film that they haven't seen themselves. But the medium, as I said, is so young and has been so thoroughly canonized that you can have the impression that you've sort of seen everything. And so I think that that draws in obsessives and completists towards film, and makes them feel like they have to be fluent in all of these things. But it's certainly helpful, because I think to this, for the same reason, film is always referring to itself, and in a way maybe even more viscerally than some other mediums do. Um, but I don't know. I mean, this is the quality of modern film criticism. I don't really read enough film criticism to pass any sort of sweeping
I was
judgments.
gonna ask you if
Um,
there's any critics that you love, or
I
are
mean,
you?
there are several that I respect, and that whenever I read, I'm so grateful that they have shared their insight and that they do this work. You know, and obviously, the internet being what it is, there are also, it's so many more people who are, you know, of all various levels of experience, who are throwing their voices into the mix. And like anything, some of them are going to be more valuable than
Mhm.
others, and Letterboxd is its own phenomenon. But you know, film criticism is dying in like a in a business sense, in the fact that like we
Yeah.
all went all in on a web-based, you know, ad-driven
Yeah.
model that doesn't really exist. I count myself extremely lucky every day that I have one of the very few you know, salaried positions in this line of work. And I think even after all my years of experience doing this, if I lost my job tomorrow, I would not necessarily have anywhere to land on my feet. And that's an anxiety that's really difficult to live with. But
You can be a
yeah,
streamer. You can
I could
just
just,
game on Twitch.
you
Well,
know, I don't know if I'm cut out for that. I don't know if anyone wants to look at my face staring at a television for hours a day.
you'd be
I
surprised.
can do in the dark.
Um,
Um, but it's yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, I have sweeping generalizations about film criticism in the state of it today. There's certainly an appetite for it. That's all I can really say, is that like, you look at the conversations and the discourse, so much of it is toxic, and it feels like a negative overall for conversation around art. But like, it's so pointed. So many people are interested in ingesting opinion. I tell myself, however delusionally, that opinion is sort of going to be the last domino to fall to AI, because people want human
yeah.
response. I mean, as many people as will just turn to Rotten Tomatoes to be like the final metric that tells you every data point you would need to know about the quality of a film. You know, people at least want humans to be contributing
Yeah.
those data.
I'd rather have the guy who's like, "Oh yeah, you love movies, name every film, bro." You know,
Yeah,
who's an asshole, but at least he's a human.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like, and I'm fine playing the heel, right? Like it's been weird for me going into this line of work, because I don't really, I mean, I could be wrong. If you're one of my personal enemies who knows me IRL and you're in the chat, you know, speak up. But like, I think for the most part, I don't have, I don't have a very conflict-driven existence in real life. I try to be nice to everyone. I don't really get into
Have you?
online or in person.
Yeah, I've never seen
And
you
but like,
piss
I
off
am like,
anybody really.
oh no, I feel like people hate me online, and they always have. And I think because when you're on your line and you're visible to any degree, you're really just a character in somebody's head that they've invented for you. You're a shadow of a shadow of a shadow
Well,
of yourself.
yeah, I was
And
gonna say
like,
I do know that you hated Wicked.
yeah, I mean, I hate movies, and then, you know, I know I have very strong feelings about some movies, and sometimes those feelings don't dovetail with consensus, and that can
Could
easily cause
open up
someone
the
to,
yeah.
Yeah, and then they
Yeah.
just think of you always as that person, or you say one thing in the endless volumes of things you have to write on a deadline in a given week, and that one thing defines you to someone for years on end. And they create this version of you in their head and are punching at it. And it's very weird to be in what feels like such an antagonistic relationship with so many people I don't even know. But I it's part of the like it also just tells me that like people care about the movies still. They care about
Yeah.
arguing about them. They care about
You're
how they
angry
make
at
them
me
feel.
because you
So
care.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to care about me, but
Yeah.
like you care about the thing that I care about,
Which
and
is
that's
good. I
enough
mean,
to keep it
ultimately.
going.
Yeah. So basically,
Yeah,
what you're saying is like, yes, there's a lot of, nasty discourse online. And I know that a lot of film critics feel like, you better watch out who you're criticizing. What if you're a music critic and you're criticizing Taylor
yeah,
Swift?
sure.
Get get a good lawyer. If you are in film and you don't like something like Wicked, then watch out. But for you, you're
Yeah, I
saying like at
mean,
least people are still battling it out. Like these are humans in the marketplace of ideas who have very strong opinions, but at least they have at
yeah,
least
I
they
mean
have opinions.
the fandom thing kind of baffles me. Like that's sort of white noise to me. Like when when you give a negative review to Dune 2 and someone in your mentions who's like Lisan Al-Gaib 27 is like, I hate you, whatever. It's like, well, you have a dog in this fight. And I think it's even more extreme when you're talking about like people responding to Taylor Swift or something like that, like
Yeah.
the standing around these artists and the parasocial relationships and whatnot,
Yeah,
which
watch out for Club Chalamet
yeah,
if you don't.
well, I'm intimately familiar with Club Chalamet,
Oh my god.
but wishing her the best in these trying times. But I think her house burned down recently.
It did.
Anyway,
She
maybe I
was
know too
still
much about
talking
Club
about a
Chalamet.
complete unknown, though. I was like, damn,
Yeah, I
girl.
mean, hey, soldiering on for the cause.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I try to step back from that and just like it's hard because like you want as a critic you're engaged, you're in dialogue with a work of art and you want to not be standing on high and just sort of disseminating your opinion, but one of the virtues of my job is that like I primarily am doing things for like seeing things at the very start of their lifespans at festivals and premieres and whatnot, when there hasn't been a conversation around it, and I can help sort of set the terms to whatever degree I one review can around a movie, and then I can just sort of wipe my hands of it,
Hmm.
and don't have to deal with like the seventh level of a Nora discourse 6 months later. And so I do enjoy that, but I'm happy that the discourse is, or any discourse, I guess, is happening. I don't know. It's all very strange.
Yeah. I
And I would
well,
love
I
for someone to find a more reliable way to make this a financially viable field for more people. But
I think on the one hand, the democratization of film criticism is good, right? When something
sure.
is no longer gate kept, when only those of an elite status in a very small um, circle of people are able to do something, opening that up to the masses is more equitable. Of course, then you run the risk of something being watered down because simply more people are doing it. And there are, because of the internet, not qualifications needed to be a film critic. The idea that like everyone is a film critic these days, because if
Well,
you have Letterbox, if you have Rotten, if you have the internet, then you can
there are no
be.
qualifications to being an artist either, right?
That's
Like you just
true.
I think that I don't know if there needs to be qualifications. I went to a good college before dropping out of a good film school, and neither one of those experiences I think meaningfully served the work that I do in any way. And I'm sure that I would probably be a better film critic or be able to better speak to certain films if I had spent those 4 years doing what Werner Herzog would suggest I do and like walk across Europe and live with indigenous tribes somewhere or whatever. But I think
You're like, I'll get
there's a
right on
real
that.
yeah, okay, that's definitely something that I would do well, and they would love me. But I think that yeah, I mean, I think I was very on board with the idea and continue to be of like expanding the range of voices. I work in a field where a lot of people tend to look like me, and have similar upbringings. But I think that yeah, I mean the equitability of it, and I think financially it really just starts there because when you have a field that pays so little and so late in the game, you are only availing it to people who can afford to live off of or work, have another job that supports them, and then still have the time to do this. You're making it impossible for people with children. I mean, I'm one of the only critics. Not this is not true. I'm one of, I'm not. There are not many critics who work full time who have kids, in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And but like that was after I got a job. But like there are people who don't have the luxury and the privilege of being able to be paid $100 or oftentimes these days a lot less per article they write. And that is the biggest barrier to entry for so many people. And I think, it's a problem
Yeah.
that needs to be solved from the top down because if anyone can be a film critic, which I believe is the case, it needs to be viable. There needs to be a viable pathway there for anyone as well. Or else it's
Yeah,
just
it's
the doors
not
are never.
Carrie Bradshaw rates for writing for
Yeah.
Vogue.
And like it can't be a
Sex in the City.
meritocracy if no,
Right.
I mean I watching old Sex and the City episodes,
You're
she's like,
like,
I made four
she's
grand
like,
for writing
for
like, and
one
that's when I
piece.
realized like, yeah,
Four
and I'm just
dollars
like,
a
wow, what a
word.
life.
Yeah. Had people
Yeah,
being
she
like,
has
oh, I can make money as a writer.
more
No.
shoes than I have dollars in my savings account right now.
Yeah.
But the yeah, I mean I think it yeah, it would always it can never be a meritocracy until it is viable for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
and film criticism would definitely benefit from having a greater array of voices, which is I know is a really easy thing to say as like a white Jewish 40-year-old man who is looks like if you'd like a courtroom sketch of a film critic, I'm sure like would just look like me. But yeah, but
Yeah.
it's certainly great strides have been made in that arena over the last 10 years, but also there are fewer and fewer jobs all the time. And so it's a real push and pull.
Yeah. I want to ask you about so you reviewed both No Other Land and From Ground Zero. These are two
Mm,
films that came from Palestinian filmmakers. No Other Land is a joint filmmaking project between Israeli and Palestinian journalists and filmmakers. And then From Ground Zero are stories from Gaza that were filmed over the last 15 months as they have endured genocide. And then it was stitched together in an anthology. So we have one film that focuses on Gaza and then one film that focuses on the West Bank and the settler expansion in the West Bank that's been going on for a long time. So you reviewed both of those films, and I think the filmmakers of No Other Land were the ones who directed you towards the Palestine Red Crescent
Red
Society,
Crescent Society, yeah, because
the fundraiser
I
this
raised
year.
money last year for the Palestine Children's Relief Fund,
Mm-hmm.
and to the best of my knowledge, all of the money that we raised got to where it needed to get. But over the last year, the process of actually getting aid into Palestine
Yeah,
has been
it's
so
been
fraught.
difficult. Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure if I was going to raise money for a Palestinian cause again, which is something I desperately wanted to do, that it wouldn't just be an empty spectacle, that it would be the money would actually have some material impact on the people who needed it. And so I did, reached out to people in Palestine who were on the ground there and would be able to advise. And yeah, Basil Adra, who was sort of the one of the co-directors and also the main subject of No Other Land, got back to me saying that he recommended the Palestine Red Crescent Society, who provides medical services in Gaza. And you can see their Twitter feed, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's incredibly harrowing, hopefully less so now that there's been a ceasefire agreement than it was for the last 15 months. But, in terms of pulling bodies out of rubble and
Mm-hmm.
bringing people to what whatever medical facilities they still have left, and just the fact that like they are operating at in such an urgent fashion
Mm-hmm.
still made it a really appropriate cause.
It's
Yeah,
a really wonderful cause. It's one that my community supports. I was a part of Creators for Palestine last year, and we're trying to get something together again this year. But
great.
we're very familiar with those fun
Yeah,
those nonprofits because in this
and just like
community
a word
we've
about, sorry, just about No Other Land,
oh yeah please
which, yeah, I don't know if you guys have talked about on this on the stream before, but yeah, it's a documentary. I mean, everything Caroline said about it is absolutely right, but it is a really, really extraordinary film about a friendship between. It's not in any way sort of overly sentimental about this oh wow, a Jew and
No,
you know, someone from Palestine becoming friends. I mean, it's just a these two people who have very similar they could have had very similar lives. I mean, they relate to each other in so many ways, but because they were born, you know, a few miles apart on opposite sides of an apartheid system, live in radically different existences. And Basil Adra sort of inherited this responsibility from his father of documenting the incursion of the Israeli army into their settlement of Masfer Yatta and watching it be razed to the ground and colonized by Israel. And he has been recording it through his own camcorder for since he was a child. And this movie is just it's such a beautiful and devastating
mm-hmm.
and harrowing sort of portrait that works that sort of international co-production into the fabric of what it's doing. And it's immensely powerful. And it is, to my shock and dismay, been treated as this like really controversial object ever since it
I
won a
know.
main prize at the Berlinale in
Berlinale.
February.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where the minister of culture who was seen applauding and then was accused of anti-Semitism then said, "Well, I wasn't applauding for Basel, who's Palestinian. It was just
right.
applause for." Like it's so ridiculous. Like it's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous. One, the claims of anti-Semitism, because what this film does is it uses filmmaking as a tool of nonviolent resistance, where it is simply putting the camera up and letting the images and the words that you hear speak for itself, right? You don't have to make any great declarations. And in fact, a lot of the moments
Mhm.
of rumination of, Basil and Yuval coming together after something has happened, it's very quiet. It's very quiet, and you
Yeah.
can see the difference between how these two guys grew up. But anyway,
And
it's
just bearing witness to the things that
yes,
they capture in this film is enough. And that's a powerful argument to itself. It's like you don't need polemic. You don't need to make geopolitical arguments. You can
no,
simply, you know, observe what the violence that's being visited upon these people and understand its inherent amorality. But yeah, I mean, the movie is you know, staggering work of art and has been winning, I think, almost
like
literally, I feel
literally
like
almost every award.
literally
Yeah,
every award that it can win.
yeah.
And yet, despite its acclaim, despite the fact that it is at this point guaranteed an Oscar nomination, if not a win, which would usually be a pretty appetizing thing for any film
Mm-hmm.
distributor, particularly because that is really the only reliable way to get eyes on a theatrical documentary
Yeah,
these days. The movie is still undistributed in the United States, just because all the distributors, from the bigger ones to the smaller ones, are afraid to
yeah.
touch it. And it's going to be really interesting in a deeply frustrating and morbid way when it is nominated for and then likely wins the Best Documentary Oscar this year, and there's still a year after it first premiered, and there's still no opportunity for most people to see it. It's a real condemnation to me of the cowardice shown by the entertainment industry in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And the only worst condemnation in this particular context would be if it didn't win, to be honest. But yeah, it's a really awful situation. From Ground Zero is Palestine's official submission for the best international
Yep.
film Oscar and has been shortlisted. So we'll see what happens with that. I think it's less compelling as a film overall in terms like for its artistic merit, so to speak, but is also as an object. You know, its power is undeniable. It was all it's 22 different shorts in an
Yep.
anthology format that were all created by filmmakers in Gaza. And for me, it really resonated as a portrait of sort of artists interrupted because all these people who contributed shorts to the film, you know, some of which are more effective than others, but every single one of them is sort of a miracle unto itself that it exists. They all, you know, had various aspirations before October 7th, 2023 that were you know, obliterated, and they are looking for outlets. They're looking for ways of understanding their own condition, making sense of their own survival, trying to process the loss of so much and so many of the people in their lives. And so even if it, like all anthology films, can be uneven and tiring in parts, that it exists, that it was put together as well as it has, or that it was put together at all, really is pretty incredible.
I said the I said the same thing when I was talking to everyone this morning because I went and saw it last night,
Mm,
and I saw I got a chance to see both No Other Land and From Ground Zero, and I know that I am one of the few who's had access to those films, unfortunately. And I said the exact same thing, that it felt like a miracle. Each short felt like a mini miracle that comprised one giant miracle. The
mm,
fact that that Palestinians have been able to create, to do anything under the conditions that they have been surviving in, but also how, those shorts paint this picture of how the worst thing can be happening, but there's also like a monotony to it, Like there's a
mm.
monotony to being a refugee where you are just shuffling around all the while with the threat of imminent death hanging over you. But you're shuffling around trying to find water, trying to get flour, trying like waiting hours to take a shower. Like it's this weird juxtaposition of like monotony with extreme violence though. And because it's inescapable, like the setting, the backdrop for all of these films is genocide. So even though they are different and some of them incorporate like stop motion and puppetry, some are a phone call as like the center of the short film. It's all with the same setting. So usually anthology films, can feel kind of jarring. Sometimes you're like, oh, I wish I could have longer with this film, and other times you're like, this feels too long and it's only 3 minutes. But I think From Ground Zero really stood out because even though they are all short films, it is all happening in the same, you know, like
Yeah,
literally in the same area with the same brutal conditions. So no matter what,
yeah.
that is there. And I wanted to
I think
ask
that's
you.
really, really well said. No, I just, yeah,
Oh,
go on.
thank
Sorry.
you. I wanted to ask you how, as a reviewer, how do you review something that is like From Ground Zero or No Other Land? So first of all, these are works of nonfiction. Um, no other, From Ground Zero has some fictional elements, but it is nonfiction,
Mm.
sadly. So how do you review something like that versus a work of fiction? I imagine you go into a film like From Ground Zero differently than you do an Amelia Perez or, a Wicked or, yeah.
There's so much in common between those two films. They're basically the
Yeah,
same movie,
well,
but tragic in their own ways.
yeah.
But the no, it's a good question, and you know, eh, first of all, I have the again another luxury, which is that like I don't write for the New York Times.
Yeah.
I write for a slightly more permissive outlet where um, it doesn't feel like you're. I don't know. You can. I feel empowered to just sort of do it how I want to do it, which is slight against the New York Times, but it's just like this is we can put our own stamp on things, and because there isn't really a rubric for doing these things, right? Like you can only really write about how something makes you feel, how you process it. I mean, I think back to like it's the furthest thing removed from like the old video game magazines I would read, where there's like 4.5 for graphics and 4 for story, and it's like it's not really you can't really break a film up in that way. And watching No Other Land. I mean, I think it's or reviewing From Ground Zero. It's I think a disservice to my readers and completely futile to pretend that I don't have a real humanitarian and political investment in the message that these movies are trying to get out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Much the same way as I mean, and there are oftentimes I'll watch fiction films where you sort of agree with the politics, but maybe not the aesthetics, or you agree with the means, but or the message, but not with the means, and you have to sort of thread the needle between those two. But Yeah, I mean, I think, it is a delicate dance to be critical of, let's say, like some of the shorts from Ground Zero. But you're not you're obviously not saying like this is bad. Like, hey,
Yeah.
this was
Like,
bad,
hey, here's what you should do differently next
yeah, like
time.
they should have done this shot differently. And it's like you
Yeah.
should have, because listening to you talk, what I was thinking about was just I think you really hit on something really interesting, which is like the monotony that you feel from their experience is reflected in the viewing experience of the movie. And while it may be a little bit tiring as a viewer at times, there's also a really palpable and pointed element of shame to that, where you're thinking like, oh, like haven't I already seen a version of this story about the kid who's sad that his teacher was blown up in a drone
Mm-hmm.
strike, and like,
Mm-hmm.
they're playing the sad music, and you're like, what, like, that's the point, is that
Right.
like this is the totality of that their existence has been reduced to. And yes, there are moments of humor in the film. There's such a diversity of people and the kind of life that and what they would interest them. But at the same time, the uniformity of the aesthetic of the rubble that they all live, of the tight parameters they can't escape, of the condition that, you know, weighs upon all of them, and the threat that looms over, literally, in the case of these drone strikes every day, is of course going to be, you know, it's going to feel like this one thing. And there is a really poignant tragedy in the aspect of like life can only be, despite all the infinite, polyphonic nature of the human experience, can only be so wide under such devastatingly limiting conditions. And I think that's even in what in other situations might be seen as like the defects of some of the shorts that comprise, from Ground Zero, part of their collective strength. And so looking at that movie,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, you could nitpick it, like this just short was less memorable than this other short, but also it is instructive to think about the way they're packaged and how the sum is greater than the whole in this case,
Yeah, I, I
or
I
the sum
think
is
for
greater than the
me,
parts.
I think
Greater, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I think you go into a film like that because when I was talking about it a little bit before we jumped on, and some people in chat were like, "Oh, what was your rating?" I'm like, first of all, guys, I hate film ratings. I'm on Letterbox, and a lot of times I hate giving stars. Truly, it gives me anxiety. I'm like, I don't know, 3 stars.
Yeah.
I don't know, but for
And
a
at
film,
IndieWire, we give letter grades, and
yeah,
that don't, like, I
it
like
doesn't always
roughly try to line
line.
them up with
Yeah,
star
but it doesn't
grades on
always feel
Letterboxd,
like
but
it
people always give me shit
does.
for like,
Yeah,
that B plus was 3.5 stars and that B plus was
was
four
like,
stars, and I'm like, who
yeah,
fucking
well,
cares?
that is
It's like
how
it
it
is what it
is. I
is.
know.
Like, it's
Yeah.
all
So I
arbitrary.
was
Read the
like,
words.
I was like, from Ground Zero. No, I'm not gonna give it an amount of stars because that
Right.
feels not like the point. I went into this film to like being well aware that I was watching that film to bear witness, that I was
Hmm.
watching that film to to see Palestinians and to hear their stories, and to like for that to be a platform for them to show like they do matter. For so long they have endured and been erased, and film is a tool that allows the invisible to be visible. So I went into that knowing exactly what my intentions were for that film, and I just, as I said, I completely agree with you that it feels miraculous that it even exists. Um, and I just, yeah. So I asked you like, how do you, as a professional critic, review something where there is a sensitivity around it, where you're like, yeah, the point isn't for me to be like, here's how I think this film could be better. I'm not grading it on the same scale as I would a work of fiction, especially not one that is that has to do with such a great moral issue
Yeah.
as Palestine is.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the best way that I can answer your question is just to say that like I think the least interesting criticism of any kind, film or otherwise, is to say something is good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think, often that is when I get the most bored of my own assignments and my own writing and the obligation they have to fulfill. It's so much more interesting to consider just everything else about something, like in what way, even if it's just honing in on one particular element of it, and talking about its impact on you. And yeah, I don't know. I just like everything demands its own sort of rubric for being evaluated in terms of its value. And uh, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel you hit the nail on the head in terms of just like a movie like that. It, you reckon with it on its own terms, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is I often write at length about the context around movies, oftentimes to the chagrin of my readers. But like, I think that, you know, part of one of the most elemental and sort of instructive parts of criticism is figuring out what is relevant and what isn't to something and helping determine what that is. And so, we talk oftentimes about the distinction between the art and the artist and navigating that. It's like, so much of how we engage with anything in the world is sort of figuring what is relevant to what we're talking about and what isn't. And that is an act of criticism unto itself. And so I think, yeah, I think it's just the act of reviewing something like From Ground Zero is essentially just saying like what is relevant to this story's existence, this project's existence, and what isn't, and engaging with it on those terms. I did sort of sheepishly have to give it a letter grade on IndieWire, but as dovetailing with your exact experience with it, I ended up just sort of giving it a heart on Letterboxd, because I
Yeah.
was just like, the last thing I would ever want to do, is give it a star rating that might potentially put someone off from engaging with this movie
Right,
and from
right,
seeing it. It's like, um, and so yeah, I mean, it's one of those cases where the absurdity of putting any sort of like,
right.
quantifiable value on art,
I
it
know.
just really slapped me in the face.
I know. Okay, before I let you go, since you are a very busy person, I want to open up the floor to the community and take a couple of questions. So, y'all, if there's something that you would like to know about film criticism, about any of David's favorite films of the year, about award season, um, ask your questions. I will pick out a couple. Okay. Let's see. You guys, I'm not asking him about Megalopolis.
Man, Megalopolis continues to fascinate. I mean, I think it was like the most read thing that I wrote all last year, which is my review, my like pretty, pretty complimentary, but yeah, very very appreciative of like what Megalopolis was trying to do in the abstract. But people,
People.
especially now they've seen it and can hate it for themselves, are fascinated by the movie.
Okay, I said though, I was like, you guys, this is a movie that a lot of us have feelings about, and we haven't even seen it. Okay, a lot of people are like Megalopolis, said myself included, and
I mean,
yet I will address the fact that I have not seen that film still.
that movie is sort of like Exhibit A in terms of like trying to understand what's relevant about it, because it was really easy for me, and I was very candid about this when writing about it, to sort of like wave away a lot of major issues with the movie, in favor of highlighting, its sort of fanciful ideas of what film could be, and its very
Mm-hmm.
sort of its sincerity and its vision for the future and all those things, and sort of taking the good with the bad, which is why in the video I set it to the song "Love to Hate You," just because not only do people love to hate that movie, but also I
It's
thought it just spoke
cheeky.
to sort of the mixed
Yeah.
feelings that someone might have, even someone like me who was, a net positive about it.
Um. Oh. Somebody in the chat wants to know if you have thoughts on the discourse around Amelia Perez and trans film critics who are getting attacked for criticizing this film, which is
I
crazy
mean,
to
yeah,
be
absurd that
absurd that they are getting
I
attacked.
yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting phenomenon that I think you see in so many different communities, where particularly like marginalized communities, when they see films that were ostensibly made for them or represent them, whether or not they were made by members of that community, they have their hackles up a lot more aggressively than they might if they were seeing another kind of movie. Because as much as they made hunger for a certain kind of representation, they are also the arbiters, rightfully so, of like what that representation should look like. Which is just a sort of abstract thought I've had in regards to a number of different movies. What what has been said about some of the trans criticism around Amelia Perez is very offensive and absurd. Just because, yeah, I mean, it's like whatever my feelings of that movie, which I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't know. Audiard has
I
been Jacques
completely
Audiard, who made
agree.
it,
Okay.
has been
First of all,
on his own way. He's been on the downslope
what
for
a
me for a long time. I really loved
mess.
his earlier
Yeah.
French stuff. Which if you're going to show up for an interview, you have to be able to say that you love someone's earlier French stuff at least once over the course of,
Sure.
if
We
you're going to
got
be a
check
self-respecting film
that off.
critic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the artistic defensiveness when you see the community that I'm sure in their hearts they most wanted to impress, right? Like the people they most wanted to love this movie, be bothered by it. And then you see that's compounded by a lot of Mexican audiences
Mm-hmm.
having it out for the movie to the point where Jacques Audiard had to sort of apologize to the people of Mexico on the whole for how he represented the country and sort of using them as a vehicle to tell this story that he wanted to tell that, without necessarily considering its real world ramifications. I understand the defensive impulse, but I think you read the criticisms that they've been calling out, and they're so thoughtful,
They're
and you don't have to agree
so
with them, but
thoughtful
like
and
they're obviously
legitimate.
earnest and smart and passionate, and I think it's just not helpful for anyone to just sort of wave that away and
Yeah.
say like they're just jealous or like they don't like they are angry at people for doing this and that. It's like you got to take it in. And that's what the Oscar, as Don Draper would say, it's like that's what the Oscar nominations are for. You're gonna get like 14 of them for this
Oh my
movie that
God.
I boggles my mind why anyone would particularly enjoy, and hopefully that'll be enough. But
Especially when there were multiple other films by
yes,
actual trans
right,
filmmakers
right, of
this
course,
year.
yeah.
I saw the TV Glow being one that I thought was far, far
Yeah, and stress
superior.
positions, among others. Yeah, I mean, Jane Schoenbrun's films are brilliant. I saw the TV Glow. I saw the TV Glow. One of my very favorite, very I can't even speak anymore. One of my very favorite movies of the year. And I think it again, that just sort of that point that they made was just an extra disservice, sort of the cherry on top to like we're not listening to film critics who are giving valuable response to this film, but we're also going to throw other trans filmmakers under the bus as well and sweep the work that they made and that may have resonated with audiences more
Mm-hmm.
under the rug. And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't really find any of that constructive. And I think Emilia Perez to this point has been sort of one headache after another. But
I
I
think
have had that
AS.
song about the sex operation stuck in my
Oh,
head for
oh,
like nine
oh,
months. So that's something, I
my
guess.
God. I know. I know. I have introduced that, unfortunately, to a lot of people in my community because
I see, I see, I see.
yeah, from an early,
Well,
I was like pretty early on the what the fuck is this movie train.
yeah.
And anyway, I think the ASC is the only group that seems to not be awarding Amelia Perez. I think it was like the one
Yeah, but
major
they
film that
also
didn't get. They also
in the
ignored
context
Nickel
of award
Boys
season,
though,
they
which
also
is
annoyed my beloved Nickel
insane.
Boys,
I That was
which
one of my
in that category
favorites.
especially. I mean, Nickel Boys I think is maybe the best American film of the decade so far. And Jomo Frey's cinematography in that film is so forward-thinking
It
and so
is.
ravishing and so emotionally piercing that for it not to have walked away with the award from the American Cinematographers Guild, let alone not get
Let
nominated,
alone not get
is
nominated.
really an outrage.
It's been
But
amazing to
that's
see.
award season for you.
Yes, I mean, I love and hate award season, but I cannot believe that like Sing Sing is a film that's getting ignored in the ensemble category. Where I'm like, how do you ignore this film? Nickel Boys is being just ignored all over the place. Um, I really loved A Different Man. That was one of my
Mm,
favorite films of the year, and I think Adam Pearson's performance in A Different Man is really remarkable. And anyway, that's been the Sebastian Stan in the award season has been interesting because he's kind of split between Apprentice, which Hollywood seems to be scared of even talking about, and then also Different Man. But anyway, I am very obsessed with award season, so I
I mean, sure.
it is my favorite season as much as I'm like, oh my God,
Well, it's
the
also like
things every year that piss me off.
it's a great vehicle because like movies like Nickel Boys wouldn't be made in the first place if not for the hope of putting them on the conveyor belt of award
Yes.
season and
Yes.
riding that to be seen by wider audiences. The real loss of it not being nominated for some of these awards is that it's less, it's putting it in front of less people. It's making it less of an incentive for people to go and see what, to my mind, is this incredible achievement in filmmaking. It is not a great loss that Amazon, of all companies, may not make their money back on a $22 million film. They'll be okay. And I am confident that Nickel Boys will find its place in the pantheon of
Mm-hmm.
great films from this century in very due time, if it hasn't already. But yeah, I mean, like the value of award season and why it's not worth throwing out the baby with the bathwater in terms of just being like, this is all such a cheap song and dance is that it is a financial engine for getting movies like Nickel Boys made,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the most powerful tool we have for really getting them seen by a wider audience. And so when it then turns around and does a disservice to a film like Nickel Boys, it feels like it is not serving its function. But and giving all its attention to Amelia Perez, which, like everything on Netflix, will never be seen anyway. Certainly not in proper conditions. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's always frustrating, but that's part of the addiction to the award season cycle, isn't it?
It is. I have a question here about studios lacking in the distribution of these films, like Sing Sing, Nickel Boys. It's infuriating. Seems like they're depending more on VOD releases. Yeah, so I think I think this is a combination of like uh insufficient marketing. So, with award season especially, studios and big production companies, they're not going to throw money behind every single one of their films. They're going to pick the one
No,
that
you gotta pick your horse
they
for
pick their
sure.
horse. And then as far as these films not getting theatrical distribution, well, that is a problem with the state of the industry these days, where
Well,
it's
no, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh
Sorry,
no,
go on.
that's okay. Well, I mean, it's something that I talk about often here, where like, what was that one film with bike riders? I think it was in the theaters for 7 days, maybe. So
Well,
like,
Focus Features has a rule where, like, and you see this with Nosferatu, which I think is going to end up being more than 17 days. But anything that Universal puts out and Universal owns Focus Features, unless it makes X amount of money on its opening weekend, will automatically go on VOD after 17 days. So even something like Tar 2 years ago, which was
yeah.
a an Oscar sort of juggernaut for as spiky a movie as that is, was still on VOD at 17 days. The Northman, Robert Eggers' previous film, was, and I think Nosferatu is going to end up going from Christmas Day to January 21st, so like a little bit more than 17 days, but still less than a month. And so that's just sort of contractually how it goes these days. But there's for something like Nickel Boys, they're following the template that they set with American Fiction last year. And the difference with the same sort of release pattern, and the difference with that is that American Fiction picked up all these precursor awards and nominations that Nickel Boys is missing out
Is
on,
no, yeah.
and was able to ride that to a pretty decent box office haul. But you can't blame them for sticking to a formula that works. But you do see a lot of grousing about it's very unique. It's a unique thing to the internet age where people feel entitled is a strong word, but they've been conditioned to expect that as something that the moment that something is available anywhere, it should be available everywhere. And the financials of the film industry just simply don't support that. Platform releases, and the ones that I always see people griping about that A24 does, for example, like The Brutalist right now, are sort of the lifeblood of how these movies continue to be funded. You may hate because you live in Omaha that you have to read about The Brutalist for a long time before you're able to see it. And someone who didn't always live in New York City and work as a film critic, I understand what that is like. I grew up at a time where sometimes films would be impossible to see full stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to imagine such a world anymore. But the reality is that now you see The Brutalist doing absurd numbers and per screen numbers as it expands because of the interest that it's been able to funnel and sustain through this platform release. And so until we find a more sustainable model, this is sort of the way it's going to be. Sing Sing is a unique case because it had like a holstered release kind of over the summer.
And
They
then
were
it
unsure about what its prospects would be. It's
yeah, it
coming
did well
back
at the
out.
Gotham. Well, it did well at the
Yeah.
Gothams, at the Gotham Awards, and then it got an extra release.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, and I appreciate that the A24s of the world are able to, take what's the expression I'm looking for? My brain is so fried, but the sort of a hands-on approach for each. There's like one word, it's driving me crazy, that I'm looking for, where you could do things like for each one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're but they can have a different model for release for every particular film, and sometimes that approach is a disservice to films that I wish got wider releases. I really love Joshua Oppenheimer's post-apocalyptic musical The End with Tilda Swinton and George McKay, Michael Shannon. But I knew from the moment that movie premiered at Telluride it was going to be a really hard sell,
Mm-hmm.
and it would probably be lost in the shuffle of award season. But you also need award season to sort of justify the release, and so like you can't just wait and hold it until May of the following year. So they had to sort of release it on a couple screens in early December, and then hope that it's able to ride that to a VOD release. I mean, like good movies are going to get lost in the shuffle, but I assure you that the distributors are not doing anything with the interest of keeping people away from their movies. And well, for the most part, obviously, what Warner Brothers is doing with like Juror Number Two is an entirely different story. But I think these smaller distributors want people to see their films and are just trying to find the best avenues to do that.
Yeah.
But David Zaslav is a beast of his own.
Oh, he's public enemy number one.
Yeah.
That
Juror
man.
Number Two rules, by the way. So
That
it's
you know what? I was actually I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did.
yeah.
I also
I'm
just
not
think
one of those
Nicholas
people
Hoult
who like
is
reflexively, yeah, thank you.
he's
He's
amazing.
good.
He's so I've loved
Uh
him. I mean, I love The Great. I really love everything that he is in. Yeah,
he's
there are some actors that I just like. Coleman Domingo's another one who I'm like, you're
yeah,
always going to be good. I know that whatever you're in, you're going to be great and you're going to elevate it.
yeah.
Okay, what are you looking forward to this year? Movies.
Well, speaking of David Zaslav, I mean, I think my go-to pick for the most anticipated movie of this year would naturally be, whatever Paul Thomas Anderson is working on, especially if it's going to be like a $150 million movie
Mm-hmm.
starring Leonardo DiCaprio, which may or may not be, probably is another like quasi Thomas Pynchon adaptation. But the release date for that, which is in August, has always been really strange. And then there are rumors that David Zaslav might have a mind to kick it to 2026. So I don't know if I'm trying not to overly commit myself to the idea that is definitely going to come out this year because I don't want to be too disappointed.
Disappointed.
But the cinephile in me probably wants to come up with a slightly more esoteric answer. But gun to my head, I mean, I got to go with Mission Impossible
Hey,
8,
I mean,
Dead, the Final Reckoning, whatever the fuck.
I'm
Yeah,
excited for Mickey 17. I
sure.
mean, I'm a huge Bong fan, and I have
And
really
it's
grown to
ridiculous.
appreciate.
It's
It's
been so long
ridiculous.
since his last movie.
I
Yeah,
know, and I've really grown to appreciate Robert Pattinson.
yeah,
He's a weirdo who makes interesting choices in the projects that he does. So,
sure
he's no
does.
longer Edward Cullen from
It
from
it feels
Twilight.
it feels in the abstract like 2025 is going to be sort of like a banger year. It just feels like it's been building up to this because of the between COVID and the strikes, the pipeline has been
Yes.
constricted, and like now we're sort of going to get it all. I don't know if it's going to play out that way, but it does feel like we won't be at a loss of things to choose from this year. But you
Are
know,
you a James Gunn fan? Are you a DC guy?
I'm ambivalent. No, I mean I'm really ambivalent about everything you just said. I mean, James Gunn, superheroes, all that stuff. I can take it or leave it. I have a really hard time imagining that I would
Yeah.
care too much one way or the other about how it turns out. But like I I don't know. You never I mean, the fun of this job is like you can have very dyed in the wool opinions, and when the lights go down for any movie, I want these next 2 hours in my sleep deprived day away from my kids or whatever to be the
Yeah.
best 2 hours of my entire life.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go and sit down for like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which is not a movie I possibly could have cared less about when it started. And I ended up liking, I think, more than anyone else on Earth. And didn't even see Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 because
That's the
that
only
interest did
one
not
I
sustain.
think I've seen, and it's really good. I'm not a
But
huge I'm not a huge superhero
Yeah,
watcher,
me neither.
but
It's not really my métier, as they say, but like I did also end up like, you know, begrudgingly sat down for James Gunn's Suicide Squad and ended up being like really, really enjoyed that. So, you know, I will see his Superman with open mind, but it is not getting within sniffing distance of my top 100 most anticipated movies of the year.
okay.
So
Yeah. No,
we'll see.
there's a lot of there's a lot of films coming out next year that I you know what? Film, we're so back. We
We're
are
so back. It was
so
so over for a
back.
while, and now it's so back.
Never been more back.
Um, and
Date
video game movies and TV show and all that shit, and
Oh,
it's all really cross-pollinating. It's happening.
it is
Uh,
happening.
Minecraft,
Jason
um,
Momoa in that wig. In that
Minecraft
wig
is
will
like the epitome of the video game I've never played. It's like the platonic ideal of a video game I've never played.
I
It's
just
everything that
started
I've avoided.
playing this past year. I have a friend who is obsessed with
Yeah.
Minecraft. And so we have been going on a Minecraft journey.
Oh
But
boy.
it
I'm sure
is
I'm missing out, but I just
it's one
my kid will get
where,
me into it one day.
especially on Twitch, there's a lot of people who love watching Minecraft.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see how many people were super excited for me to get into Minecraft, because it is a game that, you know, a lot of people have nostalgia for and have played themselves. And
God, it was so old that you can have nostalgia for Minecraft.
well,
Jesus Christ.
yeah, that's how it is.
And the guy's making a Minecraft 2 now. That feels,
Oh
I don't know.
yes, Notch, who is the creator of Minecraft, announced
Yeah, he seems like a
that.
chill dude. I don't really know what that could be, but yeah, I think, you know, it's like the way that I was always sort of conditioned to engage with art was always as this thing that was sort of given to you, and I always sort of struggled with like even like the new Zelda game, and it's not so new anymore, but Tears of the Kingdom, all of the constructive elements that you can do, the non-linearity of it. I don't know. I was always like, give me an experience
Mm-hmm.
and I will interpret it as I will, but it can be a finite linear experience. I was one of those people who was always baffled by the complaints that like Final Fantasy 13 was too linear and people were just running down a hallway for 60 hours. Cause I was like, all these fucking games are hallways for 60 hours. I mean, but like, tell me a good story and give me an interesting battle system and it'll be fun. But I still struggle with the Minecrafts of the world where you have to build everything from the ground up. I'm coming to video games to turn the creative part of my brain off and it'd be on the other side of the dynamic, but whatever.
That's really interesting, because I have friends who have ADD and ADHD who really love games like Minecraft because they love to be, you know, kept busy and be building things and doing stuff. As somebody who actually, I took years off from gaming, so I gamed when I was a kid, you know, played Mario, Super Smash Brothers and whatnot, and then was very much so a gaming is a waste of time. I must study. I must do all these things. And didn't start gaming again until I started streaming on Twitch, which I'm not a gamer on Twitch.
Yeah.
Most of what I do is pop culture, political type commentary.
What game did
stuff.
you start with streaming on Twitch?
Well, it was actually right before Twitch that my boyfriend was like, you need to play Last of Us. You would love that. So that got me into gaming. And then you guys, what was it was it Portal? What was my first game on Twitch? Portal was the first stream game, I think so.
I would be mortified to have someone watch me play Portal and just be like, what a fucking idiot.
You could not be worse than I was. Yeah. Okay.
I eventually found out the cake was the lie, but I'm sure I did it in like twice the time as the average person.
Well, not
and
me.
Portal
No,
2. Portal 2 was a real journey for me.
Portal 2. Oh my god. Yeah, those games were amazing. So I've played a number of games since then, but I have really I am a person who I'm like, look, I'm reformed. I'm reformed on video games. I used to be like, you know, I can never be as immersed in something as I am with film. And then I started playing video games, and the stories and characters in these games that I just found myself so obsessed with. And like, it was, it is a different experience from watching a movie. and one that I honestly don't think that I would have ever had were it not for streaming, because I think I would have just been like, I can't justify this. I can't. I
Yeah.
didn't see it as something that would bring value in any way. And now I'm a
It's so
big
funny that
believer of
doing it
that.
so publicly was the way of
Yeah.
tunneling out of your shame,
It was.
like
Yeah, it has been.
disinhibition.
Yeah.
That's so funny because like playing video games for me, I guess because it was the way my parents would always contextualize them when I was growing up, were always definitely like I'm doing something wrong. I would do it all the time, but it would always be like, this is not what I should be doing at any given moment. It is somehow like
Mm.
a waste of my time. And even now when I play them, it's like a late at night, like, my wife not paying any attention sort of
Stolen
thing. So
moments. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But that's really cool. I'll have to hang around Twitch a little bit more, I guess, and figure out what
Check
this
it
thing
out.
is.
There's a lot happening on this platform, and I'm always happy to be somebody's introduction to Twitch. So whenever I talk to somebody on this platform who's never been on Twitch, I'm like, welcome. Now you have been. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. This
Well,
was a
thank you so much
great
for having me.
conversation. Guys, don't forget that the fundraiser link is still live. So I know we've done a number of fundraiser things, but Palestine can always use more help. So if you have any funds and you're like, where do I put these? Well, David's fundraiser is right
I'll keep them
there.
warm for you. Yeah,
Yes, for the Red
and
Crescent
they'll go to a good
Society.
place.
And yeah, thank you so much. And we'll be
Yeah,
looking
thanks so
for
much for having me,
you.
Caroline.
We'll
Bye,
be looking for
chat.
you on Letterboxd. You're on
Yeah.
Twitter. You are, of course, with IndieWire. So lots of places to find you.
Lots of places. Cool. Yeah, I'll see you on the Twitches, see you in the video
Yeah,
games.
we'll see you
See you later,
later.
everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye. Okay. Y'all. That was great. That was great. I really, really enjoyed that conversation. Time flew by. I'm always trying to be cognizant of how much time I am taking. And Preston, oh my goodness, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Appreciate you. Seeds, thank you for the 17 months. Sean, thank you again for the raid. Hogan, thank you. Cat Baked Biscuit, thank you for the 8 months. Regrets, thank you for the prime. C. Zergly, thank you for the 8 months. Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope y'all enjoyed that. David is... I am thankful because David is a person who is online. He understands internet things. There were a couple tests that I did, and he absolutely passed up. Like mentioning Club Chalamet, I was like, I bet he knows who Club Chalamet is. He totally bucked my image of film critics frantically consulting their thesaurus for angry words. You know what I really appreciate about him is that he really just he really just seems like a normal dude who loves movies but is not pretentious. You know, I think film criticism, especially by the old guard or by people who are actual professional critics, you know, they're not just influencers who give their thoughts on movies. There can be a pretentiousness there. There can be still like gatekeepy vibes, and he is obviously a guy who's like the more the merrier, you know. Dot Bio, thank you for the 5 months. Jules, who, thank you for the prime. We might need to do reverse meme school where you explain Club Chalamet to me. Oh my god. You and Sam both. Sam did not know Club Chalamet. And you guys, I cannot tell you how many fucking people I have taught Club Chalamet to. Like, I'm kind of a Club Chalamet expert. I'm kind of a Club Chalamet expert, which is not good. You know nothing, Nandres. No. Like the streamer you taught Sin about Club Chalamet. I know. I have taught too many people about Club Chalamet. I can't. It's like the one thing that I am now an expert on. Love having this discourse on Twitch. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining. Always love to have convos like this. And man, I'm so glad we got into it a little bit on Amelia Perez. I would have loved to get into it more on individual films. He and I both loved Nickel Boys, obviously No Other Land. Did not care for Amelia Perez. No, he fucking hated Amelia Perez. Hated it. I would have loved to talk to him about Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan film, because I fucking hated that movie. And I have seen a lot of people who I respect who like Trap. And it's crazy to me. It's crazy because I'm like, okay, what's happening? What's going on? I thought the first half of Trap, while they're still in the stadium, was better than the second half, but it was fucking stupid, man. I think Josh Hartnett is great. Josh Hartnett is very wicked and funny. It was ass. Honestly, it was. No, we didn't talk about the substance. There was just too much to talk about, because I wanted to talk about the films, the Palestinian films that he has seen and reviewed, talk about film criticism, talk about his countdown videos. But yeah, like I said, I would have loved to get into it more in regards to individual movies. Feels like it could have been good, but it just wasn't. I just was like, it went so off the rails, but not in a good way. Not in a good way. Yeah, I was like so frustrated by how because it wasn't a film that I felt like, okay, I can get into this being campy and silly. Gremlo, thank you for the raid. I was actually just about to raid you. Thank you. I am not gonna stick around, you guys, because I'll be back later tonight and I'm tired. Well, shit. I'm tired. I don't do morning streams, but I jumped on this morning to have a conversation with David Ehrlich, which was great. Loved that. The Beast was heat. I know I need to watch it. I know. I have a lot of movies still. It never ends. Every time I'm like, I've watched all of them. No, I haven't. There's still so much for me to watch. I wish my job was just watching movies. Like, that's it. Jay Mariana's live. I normally rate her, but never get a chance to rate you. Yeah, that's because I go to bed at like 5 a.m. This is not my streaming hour, but thank you, buddy. I hope you had a good stream. Thoughts on The Brutalist? Gotta go finish that film. Gotta go back. I'm just Luca. Thank you for the 14 months. I am, like last night when I watched 2 films, and then I went, oh my God, I have so many more movies that I need to see still. Can this just be my job? I don't even mean like I review films. I don't even mean anything. I just want my job to be watching movies. Hi, what's your job? Oh, I watch movies. Oh, like you're a critic? No. No, I just watch movies. I just watch them. 2025 goal, Caroline has to watch every single movie known to man. Yo, it does feel like it does feel like a job. It's a great job. I love movies. But holy shit, there is always so much to watch. I always feel behind even when I've watched an insane amount of movies. I'm like, there's still more. And then David Lynch dies. And I'm like, oh, I want to go watch the Lynch films that I haven't seen or that I haven't watched in a long time. Or, just like my favorite David Lynch films. I've seen Mulholland Drive a bunch of times, but I want to go watch Mulholland Drive again. And then Severance Season 2 came out. No more movies 2025, except more movies, right? Except I can't wait. I can't wait for 2025 films. And I want to go back and like rewatch Twin Peaks. Man, The Elephant Man is really one of my favorite movies ever. Like all I want to do today is curl up on the couch and have a David Lynch movie marathon. Doesn't that sound amazing? It's overwhelming thinking about all the media you want to catch up on. There's always stuff to watch. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, get high and watch Lynch. Yep. Still need to finish Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is fucking amazing. I tried to get Will to watch Twin Peaks with me. Like I had watched it and then I wanted to rewatch it. He didn't stream last night. He doesn't love Lynch. So he wasn't super into watching Twin Peaks when I tried to put it on for him, but I am sure he will give his thoughts. He thinks Blue Velvet's amazing, like a masterpiece. It sucks because Will would love Firewalk with Me. I don't dude. Okay, here's the thing about Will. He is obsessed with storytelling, and he does not like something being intentionally open-ended. He doesn't he as a film lover is like in contrast to Lynch's philosophy. Lynch's philosophy on film, on art, as it doesn't need to make sense. Life doesn't make sense. Why do my movies need to make sense? Why do I need to explain anything? The movie is doing, like, that's what the movie is for. Anyway, we'll compare Lynch to the annoying orange. Oh yeah, also the Silo. I gotta watch the Silo finale. Yeah. Art exists to be interpreted. It's up to your own interpretation. It's not tidy. Yeah, and I think depending on the format, depending on the medium, I think there are people who are fine if that's a painting. If they're at a museum and they're looking at a painting and they're like, ooh. But with film, they don't like that philosophy in filmmaking. I mean, that's that's how it goes. People have differing opinions on what it is that they want in a film, what they what they require, you know. But every frame a painting. That's true. Every frame a painting. All right, you guys. I'm going to peace out. I will see you all later tonight. I'm jealous you and Will are both opinionated movie lovers. I want to watch. I saw the TV Glow and talk about it, and my partner just wants to rewatch Harry Potter again. Throw out Harry Potter. Literally, just if your partner puts Harry Potter on the TV, take out a gun and just threaten to shoot the TV. You know what you should do? Okay, if you're somebody who's like, man, I want to watch movies that aren't just Harry Potter, and I want to watch movies with my partner, but all they want to watch is Harry Potter, you should like you should like intentionally do a thing where it's like, okay, we watch a movie that I want to watch. You have to watch this movie. And then we watch a movie that you want to watch. Right? It's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. Okay? You want Wingardium Leviosa? Well, first, we're going to watch this film that I want to watch. Yeah, you film club your partner. Film club your partner. Sometimes I do believe that people you have to show them a film against their will, right? It's good for them. Okay? It's good for them. Prisoner of Azkaban, Lost Highway double feature. There you go. There you go. Like some films, for people who are, you know, real film lovers, we all have films that we've only watched because someone's like, you're gonna watch this, you know? You're in like a dank apartment, you know, half a joint remains. Someone's like, man, I need to show you this Cronenberg film, and you're like, what? Who? And then you watch it, and you're like, that was crazy. But I believe that it's good to do that. Me forcing Lola to watch Cure at midnight after Christmas. There you go. There you go. I'm just dying over the Harry Potter thing. Because I know people like that too. I have friends who like only want to watch Harry Potter. They have watched Harry Potter so many times. So many times. And I'm like, it's still Wingardium Leviosa. That hasn't changed. That has not changed. All right. Anyway, I'm going to send you J. Marianne. I'm going to go take a little rest, and then I will be back later tonight, and we can do some more Lynch tributing. It's going to be hard to pick which interviews I want to watch, there's so many Lynch interviews. There's so many great Lynch clips. There's a million tributes to him online. There's a lot to parse through. And then also the truth of it being that it's hard to talk about. It's hard to summarize Lynch. It's hard to explain Lynch. But he was fucking awesome. He was awesome. What an icon. Why are we always losing the coolest people? There's people that I'm like, please take them. Please. I'm ready to crab rave. I'm ready to crab rave. This is not who's on the list. Whoever's listening. Whoever's up there. I know. All right, y'all. Have a good day. Have a good night wherever you are, and